Frank, how are you? I see you, buddy. I want to thank you for coming in. We're going to have a discussion on gold with Frank. Frank, I'm going to make you the presenter. Let's see here. Why isn't that happening? Huh. I guess I have to take control first to give you control.
Is it Frank J?
Yeah.
Okay, let me try.
Okay.
Huh. I'm wondering if there is a limit to how many stuff we can...
He's been here for like an hour, almost.
No, I'm wondering if there is a limit to the number of stuff we can have before promoting him, because I'm also not seeing the ability to promote him, but I can definitely unmute him. Let me see.
Can we?
There?
Yeah, hi, Frank.
Hey, how are you, sir?
Okay, Frank, thanks so much for joining us today. Great to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Did you want to show your screen, or is there anything you want me to show?
Mostly just be verbal.
Okay. I know that you wanted to talk about gold. So first of all, why don't you tell us how you became a writer and had this kind of interest in...
Coach, I just gave you the screen in case you want to show like his website or something. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So tell me, how did you get started in this? What was the catalyst for you? You know, being suspicious of paper and looking at other alternatives, and how average people really kind of get fooled by, you know, looking at their fiat wealth. And go ahead.
I think it's more than average people that get fooled. I think everyone gets fooled. I think professionals get fooled. I have discussions with professional traders and professional investors that often they like to talk about nominal dollar gains and nominal dollar capital gains, and they never bother to inflation adjust the things that they're talking about. And the reason I got into this topic in the first place was, it's just like many of your guests I've heard before when I've listened in on your fantastic webinars, is that 2008 really shocked a lot of people in this country. No one, I mean, not nobody, but very few people saw that it was coming. Very few people predicted it. And it was a monumental occasion, as everyone can remember. And that's really what the catalyst was into me being interested in all these things. And in reading, you know, economic history and macroeconomic analysis, I look at gold as a completely different type of asset, if you'd like to call it an asset at all. A lot of people look at gold as if it's an investment. I don't look at it as it's an investment. I look at it as its own separate currency, or more appropriately, I look at it as if it's money. So kind of tying the whole thing together is, if you approach gold like I approach gold, in my opinion, and viewing it as money, you guys do a fantastic job with your Forex analysis of the dollar being up, the dollar being down versus other currencies. And I don't really pay attention to the day-to-day, hour-to-hour, minute-by-minute fluctuations, because I'm not a trader. I don't move in and out of markets. I'm an investor. So the reason I view gold the way that I do is because gold possesses the properties necessary for money. And gold has been money for something like 50 decades now, 5,000 years. And it wasn't chosen arbitrarily. So when you compare gold to like fiat dollars, you have a lot of the same types of attributes.
You can't print gold.
Gold is genuinely scarce. So it fulfilled all of the roles that you would need for a sound money. You would need something that's a medium of exchange. You need something that's portable, something that's durable, divisible, fungible. Something that's a unit account and a long-term store of value. Now, we have all of those things in the US dollar except for the long-term store of value. The problem I think we have is we're very short-term thinkers. A dollar to me or a dollar to you is not what a dollar was to my grandfather or even my father. It's a constantly changing environment. And if you paid attention to the day-to-day fluctuation, yeah, the dollar could be stronger, the dollar could be weaker, but in reality, it's a long-term downtrend. There are some estimates I've read. I've read many estimates, but it seems as though
80% from the buying power it used to have, I think, already. And
I think it's 80% just from the 70s, but if you go back a century, there's about 2 to 5 pennies worth of 1913 purchasing power left in the dollar. And that's really what this all comes down to, because if you look at fiat currency and it's just a worthless piece of paper, it's not really a worthless piece of paper. It's a promise, and it's everything that it comes with confidence, and confidence is something that's fragile. So if you look at all the fiat currencies that have collapsed throughout history, they didn't collapse because people just suddenly woke up and said this paper isn't worth anything. It became worthless because people lost confidence in the ability to purchase things with the money.
So do people have to be conned to have confidence?
That's a good question. I have confidence in the U.S. dollar in the short term. I mean, I worked for them, I use them, I pay my bills with them. I just look at when I measure things. This is what, to me, it's all about measurement. When I look at currencies, we talk about a new house or a new car or clothing. We measure those items in U.S. dollars. It's a natural reflex. So if I say my house costs $350,000, that gives everybody in the moment time to reflect on what that means. Now, if I told you if my house cost $350,000 and it was 1950, you're talking about a house that doesn't exist. So over long periods of time, which is what money should be, is a store of value over long periods of time, because you save money over long periods of time, then I look at gold for a much more accurate measure. So a constant analogy that I like to use is, if you're a construction worker and you go to build a house, you need tools. So let's just say you're using a measuring tape. That measuring tape has to be the same standard measuring tape every single day. That's how you measure windows. That's how you measure walls. That's how you measure lumber. You can't use a tool that changes its length and in essence its measurement every single day. That's what we do with fiat currencies. We're using something that changes in measurement every day as an accurate measure for things. So just like as an example, we talk about dollars nominally, and that's a word everybody should be familiar with. When you have a nominal $100 bill, my $100 bill and my grandfather's $100 bill is the same nominal value, $100. But what it purchases is completely different. So if you took a $100 bill today, I could buy $100 worth of goods and services. That $100 bill in 1955 bought $930 worth of goods and services in today's dollars, that's if you go by the government's inflation statistics numbers from the CPI, which are largely suppressed. You take that $100 bill in 1918, it bought $1,700 worth of goods in today's dollars in goods and services.
Okay. Do you believe that statement, Frank, that goes back a long way, that for an ounce of gold you could buy a nice suit? So now you have to go out and spend about $1,230 for a suit, and in 2011 it was $1,900, and in 2000 it was $200 if you went to C&R Clothiers.
And Mr. Pinkert, it's actually demonstrably true that can be done well over the length of time. So just to give you an example, I've read a lot about the housing market. For a lot of American history, the housing market, you could purchase a new single family home for right around 200 ounces of gold. So what I like to do is get out of the habit of always pricing things in dollars and then pricing things in gold. So I look at a brand new house in 1950 in Long Island, New York. I use this example a lot because the first suburb of Long Island was Levittown. So you could purchase a new single family house in Levittown, Long Island in 1950, when although gold wasn't convertible on demand, it was still linked to the dollar at $40.25 an ounce. When you look at the new price of that house, it was $8,500 in nominal dollars, which at $40.25 an ounce, it was 211 ounces of gold. If you extrapolate that into the future, the same house in 2012 sold for $310,000. Now, if you divide that by the market price of gold at the time, you'd see that the house cost 187 ounces of gold. So you actually got the house cheaper in terms of gold's purchasing power than you did in terms of the dollars. You needed 3,600% more dollars about 70 years later to buy the same house. But when you take it and you value it in a different currency, or a different money, you see that the house didn't change in value whatsoever. And you can do this with a suit, you can do this with houses, you can do this with cars. I've done a division on dozens and dozens of different consumer products and different investments. It actually, when you look at the capital markets and the financial markets and the investment markets, when you want to get an idea of all-time highs, if you just convert the major indices into gold, you'll see that the Dow Jones Industrial Average.
They're not as strong. They're not. You wouldn't get the parabolic look on a chart if you put it in gold terms. In fact, we're not making new all-time highs, are we, Frank?
Not at all. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, in terms of pricing it in gold, which again I consider gold to be real money with a long-term store value, so it's much more accurate to look at things measured in gold rather than measured in nominal dollars. It topped in 1997. The S&P 500 priced in gold topped in 1960. Did not top in 1962, but we were at 1962 levels. The housing market, where there's been a lot of attention because the housing market continues to hit new all-time highs at all times. Houses are more expensive than they ever been. If you price homes in gold on the Case-Shiller index, you'll see that we're at 1987 levels. And the most interesting one that I saw, which is on a website called pricedingold.com, there's an individual named Sir Charles Vollum who does a lot of this data, and he converts many charts, coffee, cocoa beans, tuition, groceries. He converts all of these indices into gold just to see a different perspective on when things were expensive and when things weren't. If you look at Yale College, room, board, tuition, as everyone knows, college has gone parabolic in its expenses. And if you look at Yale, you convert the cost of room and board and tuition in Yale College. Right now, in terms of gold, Yale College for a year there is the same as it was in the 1930s. Nothing's changed in terms of what it costs in gold.
Okay. All right. Let me ask you this. Do you believe that there's a paper conspiracy to depress the price of metals? A lot of people talk about it, that the market, there's a paper market, and guys like Jim Sinclair, who are big gold proponents, went to Singapore to open up a cash and carry gold exchange so that it wasn't affected by paper and futures contracts.
Well, I think it's clear that there is manipulation to whatever degree, whether it's legal or illegal, in every market. The gold and silver market, I think it's obvious. You see banks all the time paying fines for it, which really don't amount to very much in terms of money. But the problem with the paper market is you have the price of a scarce, if you want to call it money, if you want to call it a commodity, if you want to call it an element. It's legitimately scarce, and it's being priced in a market where there is no limitation on how much you can produce. So I saw estimates recently that the paper market, sometimes, you can sell 300 forward contracts for every 1 ounce of gold that you have. So if I'm able to sell 300 of the house that I live in, I could really get it pretty cheap, even if I only have one house. It's the only market I've seen where you can sell something 300 times over and dump, a legitimate amount of paper contracts in the market to get a big change in the price in a very short period of time. But I don't even really look at it as a conspiracy theorist or anything like that. I think it's that people don't want other people to pay attention to gold because they want people to keep thinking that it's a barbarous relic, that central banks listen, the central banks are buying it. The IMF holds it. They're not holding it out of tradition. They're holding it because it is another money. The United States, our reserves are mostly gold. Most people are surprised to know that, but most of our reserves are gold. We print dollars. We don't need to hold dollars in reserve. So most of our reserves are actual gold reserves. And if it's good enough,
do you think we have plenty? Have they decreased over the years? And we used to hold gold for other countries, and Germany started a trend a few years ago requesting it be shipped back there.
There's been a whole bunch of talk of repatriation, and there's a lot of theories out there that we don't hold the gold that we say we do. I operate under the assumption that we still have the gold reserves that we've always had.
Okay.
I
right.
haven't seen any evidence to the contrary other than obvious theories, but there's always the calls for auditing Fort Knox and to look for it,
Right.
to verify it, and I wouldn't be against anyone verifying it, but I think that's a lot of theory and not necessarily a lot of evidence.
Okay. Well, I have to switch gears because it's become so prevalent now, Frank. And,
Sure.
Yeah, we didn't talk about this before the interview, but I'm pretty sure you have a view on this. So, the frenzy right now happening in the crypto market, right? So,
yes.
Okay. All right. So, a lot of people are saying, it's better than gold. It's digital gold. It's more portable. It's going to be competition for the dollar. I mean, that this is a whole new wave. Curious on if you think it does provide competition for people that used to be gold bugs, or is it smart to diversify in blockchain in some way in these cryptocurrencies? Are they even currencies, Frank?
This is the big problem. I'm going to make a lot of enemies with my opinions on this. I have strong opinions on cryptocurrency.
Yeah, you can still hang out with me, man.
I think cryptocurrency's biggest problem right now is that it doesn't have any unified identity whatsoever. I've heard people say over the last year, since obviously we've seen the bubble start deflating, which is exactly what it was. I've seen people say that it's a store of value. Then it's not a store of value. It's a currency, but no one uses it as a medium of exchange. Then you hear people say that it's gold 2.0. Then you hear people say that it's money. No one really knows what it is because it hasn't been around long enough. The cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin being the main one, obviously, hasn't existed one single business cycle from start to finish. This only started coming around in 2009. There's no way to know what's going to happen with them. I see that there is a lot of promise with respect to the technology, but I mean, the idea of a blockchain, if you go back and do the research, really it came into being in 1991. It's nothing that was invented recently. And with all technologies, and I use this analogy all the time with the Ford Model T, you might have the first mover advantage like Bitcoin does, but with all technologies, somebody smarter, somebody better will develop something that is better than the previous one, which is why we don't drive Ford Model Ts around anymore. So to say that they're going to take over as a currency, to say that they're going to take over and crowd out the interest in gold, I don't see it happening. I don't believe that they're currency. I think that, from my perspective, is that it is a speculative mania on new technology. And that's where you get these parabolic moves up and you get the parabolic moves down. And, they're not regulated. There's a lot of price manipulation in the markets, like, in all markets. But a lot of the people I talk to involved in cryptocurrencies have no interest in gold whatsoever. But if you look, every time a cryptocurrency is displayed for advertisement, what is the first thing that they do? Is they put a big B on a gold coin.
Yeah, that's interesting, Frank. They're trying to sell it as security. And
they call people that develop
it's subliminal, because I never thought about it. I go, yeah, it could be a Krugerrand.
Yeah, well, why do they call them miners? They're not mining anything. They're computer solving long, complicated math problems, math equations.
Yeah, Frank, I was going to try some Bitcoin mining. I went out, I got a shovel and I got a pick, and I came to my laptop and destroyed it.
I think I mean
maybe it's like the gold rush. It's not owning the coins, it's selling the picks and shovels.
That's true, and those are probably the people that will end up making the most money. But like we were saying from the beginning, in terms of comparing it to fiat, Bitcoin, there's supposed to be a fixed supply at, I think, 21,900,000 Bitcoin, which is fine. So you made it artificially scarce, but Bitcoin, all it is electrons, and there is no limit to the infinite number of cryptocurrencies that can be developed, and there's no limit to how many better cryptocurrencies can be developed. So in the respect of Bitcoin might be scarce. depending if you want to look at it mathematically. It's not actually scarce. It's not anything. See, gold will always be gold. Bitcoin is only good for Bitcoin. You know, gold has intrinsic value. Bitcoin has market value. Bitcoin doesn't have any intrinsic value. There's a difference between values. Bitcoin's current market value is over $6,000. But Beanie Babies in the 1990s
so you're
had
talking about cost of production.
Right, and there's different varying costs of productions all over the world. The problem is that these things are unlimited, and as time goes on and computing becomes more advanced, there's no limit to what people can do to develop these things and to make infinitely better ones than exist now. You know, what most people are ignoring is that what the private sector develops, the government usually co-ops and uses it for itself. So if you get people confident into using digital cryptographic currencies, there's no stopping any sovereign government from doing the same thing and making that the coin of the realm. And,
how about you know, moving towards cashless? A lot of gold people believe that that's where, you know, governments want to go. They want to do something like Modi did in India to you know, be able to, they'll justify it. They're stopping crime and the, you know, black market by doing that. But then, even though I think they already know everything we buy and sell, they really would. There'd be no, you know, cash economy.
We already, I think, like probably 95% digital at this point as it is. I mean, I don't see very many people carrying cash around at all. It's mostly debit cards. You have Apple Pay, PayPal. You know, people using things. It's already very digital, but
Orwellian, and we don't even know it.
And the problem is, it's just think about the natural disasters that we have. All of these types of digital payment systems are all predicated on the electrical grid. I mean, if you remember Hurricane Sandy, look at Hurricane Michael, Hurricane Maria. I mean, these things happen with regularity. If you need to get supplies, you know, I live in the Northeast, and during Hurricane Sandy, if you didn't have physical cash, you couldn't get gasoline, you couldn't get milk, you couldn't get water, and you didn't have electricity for sometimes 3 or 4 weeks. So I don't know how you can move to a completely digital system without guaranteeing complete, you know, unfettered access to electricity at all times. I don't think the technology is there for it. I think you can move toward a lot of digital payments, which are convenient, but I think you need a cash alternative, especially during natural disasters and so on.
Yeah. You know, that's a pearl. Everyone should have, you know, maybe a 2-3 months of cash for living in emergency situations.
You know, it's digital's great until you don't have electricity. Cryptocurrencies, it's another thing I talk about with a lot of the crypto investors is, you know, there's something called counterparty risk in all investments, and a dollar is a promise to pay, which means a dollar is only worth something if someone's willing to take it. Cryptocurrency is the same way. It has counterparty risk. You need electricity. You need access to the internet. You need someone willing to exchange for it. It's not in and of itself a counterparty-less asset.
Okay. Why don't we wrap it with, you know, a lot poor man's gold, you know, silver, and the gold-silver ratio is really near historic measurements right now. I don't know if you have a view on that, but the gold-silver ratio, I think, is near all-time highs. It takes a lot of silver to buy an ounce of gold right now.
Yeah, I listen to a podcast often. It's David McElvaney. He runs an ICA in Colorado. He does a weekly podcast, and he actually talks a lot about never even needing to transact in dollars with respect to gold and silver, is that he just waits for the ratio to be something like absurd, where you can get, you know, tons of silver just by trading gold for it, and then you can, you know, you could literally double or triple or quadruple your investments without ever having to use, you know, dollars in transactions. It's just when that balance gets out of whack, you can, you know, trade 1 ounce of gold for whatever 80 ounces of silver. You know, sometimes that ratio gets back down to, you know, 20 to 1 or, you know, 20-40 to 1, and then you can trade back out of it. And I don't personally do that, but I think
how about as a store of value though compared to gold?
Silver as a store of value is, to me, I think silver is actually more scarce, if you want the opinion of me, because it at such a low price, it doesn't pay anyone to recycle. or to recycle it out of electronics. Silver has thousands of industrial uses, so a lot of its mining is to be used by industry. It gets consumed. Gold doesn't get consumed. Gold gets stored because everyone for 5,000 years knows gold is money, is wearable wealth, as jewelry. Gold doesn't have that many other uses other than money. Silver does. Silver, at its price, is not worth recycling it. So as industry consumes it, it goes into every cell phone, it goes into every computer, it goes into every phone, it goes into every monitor. Anything with electrical components uses silver. So when those things are thrown away, the price is not worth going in to recycle it. So silver gets used. And
even at $13, because I know people used to do it at, you know, 5 and 8 and 10, and you know, it's not like silver is as cheap as it used to be, but it's not worth it, huh?
And that from what I've read, people don't recycle it. Like I've seen, you know, people will recycle gold out of certain computer components because gold is an exceptional conductor of electricity. But again, the industry doesn't use much of it because it's too expensive compared to using silver.
I could, you know, maybe you could write another article, and I'll include my vault address for people that aren't interested in recycling it, and they could just ship it to me. But anyway, Frank, what an enlightening conversation. You know, if I had to encapsulate it is, you know, price everything in gold compared to years ago to see what type of buying power you have, right?
It takes an extra 30 seconds to just look and see what a different perspective is, because when you get caught up in an illusion of nominal dollars, I mean, if you look at other countries that have had, you know, fiat currencies explode. I own currency from Zimbabwe, and I like to show people, you know, that I'm a trillionaire. But the problem is that you could be a trillionaire and not be able to buy a loaf of bread. It doesn't mean anything nominally. You have to look at things in terms of its purchasing power. So if you use a different currency and you price things in a different currency, you can see whether or not your purchasing power is declining, or if your purchasing power is staying steady. So when you, again, like stocks, financial assets, if we have inflation, which, you know, people are very confused about what inflation is anyway, but inflation is the expansion of the money supply, which we have all the time. The price increases that people usually refer to as inflation
are nominal.
Right, and they're just the result of more dollars chasing the same limited amounts of goods and services that we want. So
and
naturally,
assets, and because I've seen the stock market rally 30% and the dollar come down 30%. So really, it was all nominal gains.
And then when you can inflation adjust it for the government's numbers, or you can inflation adjust it for what you think inflation actually is. And then you have to remember, you got to take out, you know, capital gains taxes. And I think people look at nominal dollar gains as if it's the only measure that they need to look at when it comes to their investments or the assets that they own. And I just like to do a 30-second calculation and say, has the things that I own actually increased in value, or have they increased in dollar value?
Yeah, that's great, man. I really appreciate you taking time to edify our community. And
I appreciate
because it's something that people don't hear, and we get caught up in, you know, what's our P&Ls and how much nominally we're going to book this quarter, and it really does put everything into perspective. Anything that stands the test of time, you can trust.
A lot of the bad feelings going on out there, and a lot of the misguided anger, and, you know, you hear wealth inequality and stuff. I mean, it'll all be summed up like this. Your grandfather was able to provide a better quality of life for his family on $6,000 a year in the 1950s than people are today, making $60,000 a year. And you might make 10 times more than your grandparents made, but you're not providing the same quality of life that they did. That's the real sad reality that we're living in.
I can attest to that.
It was very nice meeting and talking to you.
Yeah, it was great, Frank. Let's keep in touch, buddy. Really interesting talk today. So everyone, Frank Jurs, you could follow him at Occupy Wisdom. He's got a book. I believe it's an ebook that people could pick up. Let's see. I think I have it here. Yeah, Why We're Poor by Frank Jurs. So you could pick it up. It's on Kindle. And thank you again, Frank.
Thank you, sir.
And you know, let me end it with this. Don't wait to buy gold. Buy gold and wait.
It's nice talking to you.
I got a million of them. All right,
I like
buddy.
that. All righty.
All right, everyone. Have a great day. We'll wrap it up TGIF tomorrow. I'm going to have Peter Goldstein with us. Good hunting the rest of the day. And remember, most of all, whether it's gold, whether it's fiat, don't just count your pips, count your blessings. Adios, everyone. You're welcome. Thank you. You're welcome, Tom.